It's no secret that as humans age, our muscle mass and therefore strength starts to decline. This happens naturally as early as 40 and accelerates every single decade. So look at this graph. If you do nothing, you are the green line. A sharp decline in your physical function likely awaits you, especially after 65. However, if you choose to strength train, and obviously the earlier that you start, the better, you can be the top blue line. It means that when you're 65, you can have the same strength and overall function as a lot of 35-year-olds. Now, obviously, it's not quite that simple and there is some nuance. So let's explain how this works. Starting in your 40s, maybe even as early as your 30s, muscle mass naturally declines at between 5 and 8% per decade. And this only speeds up after the age of about 60. So both your muscle size and your muscular strength will decline during this time period unless you intervene in some way. And now there's two types of muscle fibers. There are fast twitch muscle fibers, which are responsible for more explosive movements like sprinting, jumping. And then there's type 1 fibers, which are still very important, and they're responsible for more long duration exercise like jogging, walking, anything like that. Now the problem is when you get older, you lose a lot of type 2 fibers, which are the more explosive ones, which is why a lot of old people may be fine with walking. They may be able to walk fairly well, but getting into and out of chairs, climbing up and down stairs becomes harder because you lose these type 2 fibers. You lose the explosive fibers. So daily tasks, obviously, as we all know, get more challenging the older we get. Think of your muscles like scaffolding on a building. If the scaffolding weakens, which over time it naturally will do, the actual building becomes unstable. It's more likely to crumble under any kind of stress, and the same thing is true of the body. So in order to keep the building strong, you need to do regular maintenance on the scaffolding, and that's the same with your muscles. You need to regularly do maintenance on your muscles if you want them to keep supporting your body as you age. So movements like swings, presses, squats, even carries, they target a large amount of muscle groups in a short period of time, which is why kettlebells can improve both the strength and the size of your muscles in a fairly short duration. And these movements largely use type 2 muscle fibers, which, as we talked about before, are often the first to go as you age. So if you can keep hold of them by using them, it means you're going to have much better function longer into old age. And like we said, you can be 65 but have the strength of a 35-year-old. And if you're watching this and you're over 65, don't worry, it's not too late. You can still start to resistance train today and it will still serve you for the next 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. So by training your muscles, by preserving as much strength and muscle tissue as you can, you are maybe not reversing aging, but you are certainly slowing it down to a very great extent. Neuromuscular efficiency. So before I mentioned that not only muscle size, but also muscle strength decreases as we age, and this is also because of a decline in our nervous system. So all of our nerves that run all throughout the body start to decline, as well as our muscle fibers. So this reduces our reaction time and reduces coordination, balance, which makes simple tasks like catching yourself and rebalancing after you trip up on something a lot harder. So your movements become slower, they become weaker. Your muscles aren't talking to your brain as effectively as they used to. And again, this starts to happen from the age of about 40. Yes, it's slow, but at 60, things really start to pick up. Imagine your nerves like the electrical wiring running throughout your house. Over time, the wires will start to fray, the connections will weaken, and eventually your lights may still turn on, but they just turn on a lot slower. Maybe they flicker, and your muscles respond the same way when your internal electrical wiring, aka your nerves, start to degrade with aging as well. So by doing dynamic movements with kettlebells, again, like squats, presses, swings, anything like that, you are training your brain to fire your nerves in sequence and keeping your brain and muscles speaking to each other in a way that is most efficient. And using a single kettlebell is especially effective for this because you are training one side of your body at a time, which means that the other side has to compensate for uneven loads. I won't go too into detail about this, just know that if you are training one side of the body at a time, your muscles and nerves have to work harder to stabilize your body, which can result in better gains in coordination, in balance, and stability over time. And there are a lot of case studies out there on people who are over the age of 65 who may have decreased function. For example, in people who are at an increased risk of falling over, people in their 70s and 80s who have low physical function, if they start doing movements even as simple as squats and carries, their ability to catch themselves after tripping up significantly improves. And this just means that they can be far more independent, far longer into older age. Just because you're in your 30s or 40s doesn't mean that it's not important to start training now. The earlier that you can start, the better. Whilst kettlebell training can't necessarily reverse aging, it can keep your brain and muscles talking to each other in an efficient way for a lot longer than if you didn't do any resistance training. Metabolic health and fat regulation. So as well as your muscles and nerves, aging also decreases something called your basal metabolic rate. This means that at rest, you burn fewer calories per day than you did when you were 30 years old. It also decreases your insulin sensitivity. This means that your body can't deal with carbohydrates quite as well as it used to be able to. Carbohydrate or glucose, sugar in your blood, is stored in your muscles. As you get older, you not only have less muscle to store it in, but you also are less sensitive to it, which means sugar can start to build up in your blood. This is why a lot of people as they age will start to get high blood sugar, they'll start to get diabetes or pre-diabetes. And the more sedentary you are, the less you exercise, the greater your risk is. Lifting weights or lifting kettlebells not only decrease the amount of sugar in your blood because it's burned off, which is a good thing, but they also preserve or even build muscle tissue to actually be able to store sugar in. So let's say that you're 55 years old and you have borderline high blood sugar. If you just started training and doing 2 to 3 20 to 30 minute kettlebell sessions a week, within a few weeks, your fasting glucose levels, so the amount of sugar that's in your blood, will be improved, your energy levels will have increased, and you'll be able to manage your weight more easily without even incorporating any drastic changes in your diet. Once again, it can't necessarily reverse aging, but it can drastically reduce the risk of age-related chronic health diseases like diabetes, like cardiovascular disease, and keep you fitter, healthier, stronger for way longer than would be the case if you didn't exercise at all. So there we have three main ways that kettlebell training significantly slows down the aging process by maintaining or even building muscle mass and strength, by keeping your nerves as healthy as possible, meaning that your brain and your muscles can talk to each other efficiently, and by maintaining your body's ability to deal with the food that you give it without resulting in age-related dysfunction like high blood sugar, like diabetes. So if you are a little bit older, please tell me about how kettlebells have kept you feeling a lot younger, and also let me know what your routine generally looks like. Thanks for watching. See you next time.